Hey, good morning, and how are you guys doing today? I hope amazing. So we're back with our free course from Harvard. If you don't know, you can just take a free course from Harvard, Google free Harvard classes, it'll pop up. You have a lot of options. You can also pay to receive credit or just audit for free. And so it's kind of a great deal to be able to just take a course for free. Right now, we're in the middle of taking exercising leadership, the foundational principles. So far, it's not been a bad course. I mean, it hasn't been a very complex course either, to be honest. But the teacher overall, I've liked the dude. I think he's cool as crap. Um, Pretty pleasant. And so we'll knock out a bunch of this. I hope you guys are having an amazing morning. And so let's see where we're at right now. Check our progress. Looks like we're at 34% complete, so we're halfway to the hey, we've got a passing grade. Honestly, I'm gonna knock this out. Looks like we could just upgrade at any point we feel like. Well, I don't know about any point, but it looks like we could upgrade as of now to be able to do what we want. You know what I mean? Um, we haven't done any of this um, graded. Oh wait, you know what? This is percent we're done with. Okay. If we actually got that grade, I'd be pretty outraged, guys. Pretty outraged. I wouldn't even feel happy about it. I'd be mad. Um, right now, I'm going to continue forward. Let's get back to our course. Obviously, we're also still having my thing kick off because it doesn't like what we're doing or something. I don't know. Trying to figure out exactly where we're at. Resume course. Okay. I'm a little bit discombobulated. It's like 5 a.m. still. So let's listen to our video. Let's look at what we're being asked. Oh, I already submitted that. Okay, we're already done with that. I'm going to assume we're at this video.
How would you define authority? Yeah.
Capacity to enforce.
The capacity to enforce. Well, wait a second. If I take a knife to you and say, give me your wallet, I have the capacity to enforce. What makes it authority versus simply the exercise of crude power?
So, guys, there's
Not all
different
crude
forms
power
of
is authority.
authority.
What makes something an authority relationship?
You said earlier that you have somehow been authorized to
That's not always true.
hold a position or to conduct a task. So you could be authorized by a vote, you could be authorized by a hiring, an employment situation.
So the term authorized gives us a little clue into how to define authority.
The will of the person, the perception that I am willingly giving you authority is the difference between enforcing and actual, real, authentic authority.
Okay,
So he's going with authentic authority.
Yes,
Maybe
it's consent, right?
Maybe incorrect. That's what we were discussing in the break. We
I
had
feel
an
these guys
adaptive
haven't had a leadership
challenge
class
to
before.
accepting the new model. So we were we were actually discussing when people have leaders who have a lot of physical force. So I grow up in this environment where this person is basically the person who has authority, and everybody's accepted that.
Yes.
And got used to it, and
Yes.
we forgot where this person got the authority from. So somehow we perceive that we are willingly giving this person authority.
Wonderful insight. Yes. So you could say in a way that people could grow up in a situation, they could grow up in an environment, in a country or a community, where they just learn, they don't think about it, that this is the authority, this is how the world works, this person has authority, and they
Hey, good morning.
By
How you
habit,
doing,
they
Zuck? I
learn
hope
to
you're having a great
defer
day.
to that person. And it's not so much a conscious and deliberate
Honestly, I'm gonna be honest. I've had a bunch of
entrusting or
leadership
empowering that
courses
person.
before in the past,
It's not so much a
and I'm
conscious
kind of
choice,
wishing at this
I give you
point
power.
that this was
It's
a
more
more
like by habit,
advanced course
or it's just
than
the
it
water you
is.
swim in. You know, you don't know, you wouldn't even
It
imagine
is a
any
free
alternative.
intro course, so
Well,
you know what I
I
mean. We
think it's
can't be too
institutionalized
woo-woo
structure.
about that part.
So, it's a framework that we've been given.
Yes,
That's the rule.
yes,
We accept it.
yes,
And so, therefore, that is the authority.
yes,
Even if I don't vote for it or give consent, it is what has been dictated.
No,
yes.
but on some level, you give up your personal power, and that's how the person acquires the authority.
Yes. Somehow you give them your power. You give
Yeah.
them you give them
Personal
power.
power, yeah.
Yeah.
But still, even in that context, a person, authoritarian ruler, etc., still derives
Well, I
the
hope your
power
work is
from
going
the
well,
people,
Zuck.
just not through active act of voting, but through their consent that they learn to accept. I mean, because they don't see any alternative and they don't think there is an alternative to that.
Yes. So in some ways, the authority of authorities, the power that authorities have, is it might be consciously and deliberately authorized. They're authorized by a very deliberate process, a thoughtful process. But it could be, as you're saying, that the authorization is more implicit, assumed, habitual, and almost unconscious. It's just how people grow up. That these are the authorities. I learned to play the rules by the game. This is what it means to be a good child, a good teenager, a good worker, a good citizen in this world that I live in which these are the authorities. But you're saying there is a tacit deference where, on some level, the source of the power is in the compliance of the people.
Coffee,
And it could be habitual compliance,
super
or it
important for
could
this
be
kind of stuff,
deliberate,
especially at 5
voting,
a.m.
deliberate authorization. But in both cases, there is the power ultimately comes from those people who do the authorizing.
How is that different than the gun example? Because if we're saying it's based on consent, I mean, ultimately, they're holding the gun to your head, but you consent to give up whatever they're taking from you, right? So,
To some extent, maybe like taxation. You're also giving your money through taxes, but you're doing that consciously because you want to have healthcare, etc., etc. Whereas a person at gunpoint just taking the money without your
but
consent.
I'm still consenting to give it to them. It's
Coercion.
But it's not
Right,
voluntary,
I mean-
right? Like
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Okay. So good. So what's the difference?
The guy with the gun has what they call situational or positional authority, in all honesty. It's okay. Won't get into it. Wait, was there really no question back there for us? Hold on. I gotta go back here. We listened to the video. No crap. There was no question. Okay, cool. We'll just move right back to this one.
The first thing to notice here is that trusting others to provide us with services is basic to social living. This inclination to look to elders for solutions to the fundamental challenges we face from birth is part of our design. We are born to depend on others and to trust them with our welfare in a kind of unconscious natural covenant or social contract in which we give others power over our bodies and daily decisions with the expectation that they will provide for us with care, integrity, and competence. This natural, appropriate dependency on others is, I think, the evolutionary basis for authority. The second key observation is that authority is relational. It's a property of social living. In other words, you cannot have authority by yourself. You can't authorize yourself. You can give yourself permission. You can have self-confidence and expertise. You can convey trustworthiness and wisdom. and even a calm readiness to receive authority. But you only have authority when others give you authority. That's what it means to be authorized. Authority relationships are deeply rooted. We have an innate predisposition to authorize others. This becomes less automatic as we grow up and become more conscious and deliberate about whom to trust. We think about and select whom to entrust with our welfare. We choose whom to ask for help, whom to nominate to be captain of the team, whom to choose to be head of the group or club, or who should be president of our school class. At the end of our childhood, we might choose with whom to study further, whom to work for, and in many countries, we will vote in elections and authorize public officials. Even if we are taught in our youth to be highly discriminating, or skeptical, or even cynical about whom to trust, I think there is nevertheless a deep hope in human beings that trustworthy people can be found, or will emerge, worthy of our authorization. We turn to them, we hire them, and we elect them in the hope they will do the job we've asked them to do. The first thing to
Just going to make sure that we're actually hearable real quick. Yep. Just because, honestly, it's been a little bit of a struggle to keep everything working correctly. Okay, so boom. That's how we're going to explain it. Positional authority as an elected member of a company's board, along with holding an executive position. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. I also. Okay, so there. We're going to submit that. We're moving to the next question. Most of these are super easy. I'm going to be honest. I expected this to be a much harder course than it is. It's okay that it's
In
not,
defining
but
authority, we've suggested that it takes the form of a basic social contract. When we entrust people with power over decisions and resources, we expect them to perform services. We authorize people for a reason. And generally, the more significant the services, the more significant the power and the trust. Ultimately, in many countries, we give our
not
senior officials in
unnatural.
government the power to decide even matters of life and death in war, because we expect them to protect our way of life. As we've suggested, this belief has deep evolutionary roots. Our capacity to form authority relationships lies at the base of our social structures, from the family to the nation. Whether we are speaking of the president of a country or company, a hospital administrator, or the head of an advocacy organization, a middle manager, a line supervisor, or a parent, the services of an authority figure have fundamental commonalities. We generally authorize people to provide in varying degrees three essential services: direction, protection, and order. Just as elders in a hunter and gatherer society are expected to set the direction for the group when they travel for food, people in authority in modern life are expected to know where we are going. They provide direction, setting our goals, and strategies for the way forward. Just as elders are dependent upon to coordinate group protection, people in authority today are expected to make sure that we can beat the competition, survive external attack, keep our defensive technology up to speed, and make valuable alliances. Elders in a hunter and gatherer society also maintain order. They provide orientation and structure to the way camp is laid out, restore peace when a fight erupts, and maintain cultural norms. People in authority today are also expected to ensure order in our lives
Direction,
and work
protection, and
by
order.
maintaining the structures, processes, and reporting relationships that orient us in our roles, by resolving our conflicts, and by reinforcing the cultural norms that inform
Power
and
wasn't
guide us.
in there,
So every authority relationship will, to some degree,
so that should
provide
be
direction,
false.
protection, and order.
Yeah, submit, boom. See, we're flying through this today. Honestly, these are super, kind of super easy. Okay, we often hear people ask, why are leaders not leading? Based on your understanding of authority relationships, how might you rephrase this seemingly contradictory statement? What might people really mean when they say this? Honestly, I have a lot of different opinions on this. Oh man, what in the crap? Some of these people are just saying some random stuff. Okay, so let's write a discussion. Okay, we're going to say it's in many cases that in discontinuity is because an expectation. Okay, so this is what I'm saying. In many cases, it could be because expectation gap with those who are being led. It could also be that there is a misunderstanding of expectations of the leader. Having a clear understanding of expectations of outcome and the role of the leader could help limit this issue. That's pretty freaking easy. Boom. Drop that baby in there. Move on to this part.
Perhaps the most common source of confusion about leadership is our tendency to equate leadership with authority.
That's a good point
We
too.
equate
Did
leadership
we
with
give
high
them the
positions of
authority?
power, with all the tools that come with authority, and with the ability to gain those tools. You can see this in our everyday language and in most television programs and newspaper articles. We refer to the leaders of the company, the Congress, the country, the project, the school, or the city, when we are really referring to people in top positions of authority. Journalists and scholars then study and write about presidents and CEOs to understand how they wielded power and influence and the skills and talents that
Hey, Prime
enabled them to
Admin, I'll
rise to
grab it
those
right now.
positions,
Boom. Glad I
as if they
noticed
were
that.
writing about leadership and not just authority. They might be, but not necessarily. So
Got
when we think
water
about
always.
leadership here, it's natural to assume that we are referring to people in positions of authority. But we are not making
Everybody
that
needs
assumption
water.
here because we think that assumption has big
No
costs.
problem. I hope you're having a great day.
Thinking of leadership and authority as if they were the same thing
We're
clouds our
learning again
thinking
today.
and blurs key aspects of both. It gives us a restricted idea of what leadership
We're
is,
learning
who
every
can
day,
exercise
honestly.
it,
That's kind of a
and the
blessing,
nature
right?
and practices of authority itself.
Boom. If you guys don't know, this free Harvard course stuff, there's a huge amount of these courses you guys can take. It's freaking a pretty good deal. Okay, so we've discussed how an organization is a system of authorizations and how the authorizations help solve a coordination problem. For example, families, groups, and communities gain collective intelligence as people engage in problem solving together and across generations. Authority comes from in different forms, but to get started, we'll look at formal authority. Power entrusted as part of a job. So that's often called positional authority, to be honest, but let's click the button.
From the entry-level job of distributing the mail throughout an office building to being the
See
CEO
if
of
we're
a
going to have
company,
questions.
every job description says, we entrust you with power to get a job done.
This is
Every
true.
job description sets out a formal authorization.
Boom. So we've
It
solved that one.
specifies in a formal, explicit way the powers of the job and the specific services you are trusted to provide with integrity and competence. If it's the person delivering the mail, they are given power. Power over people's mail and resources, like a motorized cart. They are trusted to do their job.
We'll watch for that
The
answer.
trust is based on shared values and competence. And they are expected to serve, to deliver the mail accurately and on time. If they start to open people's mail, or take it, or lose it, violating the trust they've been given, they lose
Got
their
coffee
authority,
too, because it's
their
early in
job.
the morning.
Moreover, nearly every job description gives you a reporting relationship. Someone senior to you who is authorized by the organization to check and to guide your work. They play a key role evaluating how well you're doing and if you should get reauthorized to stay in your job or get promoted to another. Supervisory authority relationships go all the way to the top of organizations because CEOs usually report to boards of directors who check their work too for shared values and competence. And boards, in turn, are formally authorized by governments
Okay,
and
now
their
we gotta
legal
wait.
systems that supervise, sometimes too tightly, sometimes too loosely, the company's values and competence.
Pretty
It comes
good
full circle
speaker, though.
because governments and their legal systems are authorized by constitutions, legislative mandates, rules, traditions, and most importantly, citizens, who entrust government officials with power to perform a wide array of services, including the regulation and oversight of commerce. In other words, an organization is a system of formal authorizations, from top to bottom and from side to side, living in a larger society of authorizations.
And now we know, right? Boom, boom, boom. We've answered those correctly. Clicking forward. I'm kind of curious where we're at right now, but I'll wait till we're done with some stuff. Let's read the questions that they're going to hit us with so we know what we're looking for. One way in which a formal authority differs from informal authority differs from formal authority is that informal authority is not based on an explicit contract. I believe that's going to be true. People with formal authority rarely rely on informal authority. I don't believe that that's true because sometimes you don't have authorization to do something, but people will back you anyway. In our daily lives, many of the uh, um man, my brain's not going. In our daily lives, many of our authorizations are informal. That is true. Okay, so I know that that's true. So, a lot of people, yeah, let's click this. Let's see what's up.
We authorize people
Hey,
to do
thank you
things
very
for us
much,
every
Prime.
day.
I hope you're having a
And we
great day,
often
by the way.
formalize these
Hope all of
understandings
you are
as an
having a good day.
explicit contract for services. We do this not only with job descriptions, but also when we review paperwork before leaving our car with a mechanic, sign forms when we see a doctor, or vote and elect a candidate into office in a democracy. But the people we formally authorize usually have another form of authority as well.
See,
We
boom.
call it informal authority in this course. When people have informal authority in our lives, we look to them with broader admiration and respect, beyond the specific trust we place in them to get a job done.
I'm going to
And
let you
that gives
guys
them
know
more
I
power.
use more
They can
informal
speak to a
authority
broader set of issues,
than
and
actual,
people will
hey,
listen.
this is my position.
Sometimes the informal
I think
authority we
people that use
bestow
their
takes
position like
extraordinary
that are
proportions
just
when
buttheads,
people
to be
gain
honest. So I'm
charismatic
going
and
to,
moral authority in our eyes.
yeah.
Mohandas Gandhi and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. were wonderful examples. Both men had tiny organizations for which they had a little bit of formal authority.
See.
But nearly all of their power came from the informal authority millions of people over time gave them. They each decided not to exchange it for greater formal authority, and they declined taking high political or organizational office.
Boom.
Instead, they saw advantages to leading without formal authority.
We're rocking this
In
today,
our
though,
own
guys.
everyday lives, many of our authorizations remain entirely informal. We look to people to represent a point of view, champion a cause, give us advice, or even bless us religiously, often without ever formalizing the arrangement.
Honestly, I
So having
consider
informal
religious
authority
leaders to
alone
be a
can be very
formal
powerful.
authority.
On the
Not
other
to be
hand,
mean, but like,
if
you
you
know what I
are an
mean?
authority figure,
A
it can be
priest is a
difficult to
priest because
accomplish what
they
you
are a
set out to
priest.
do without also having informal authority. Most people with formal authority rely
Or
on
whatever
having
other
some
religious
measure of
person, you know
informal
what I mean? It
authority.
doesn't have to be a
They
priest.
have the formal authority made explicit in their job description and the powers that come with it, but they also depend on the informal authority they get from their colleagues, senior, lateral, and junior, who trust, respect, admire, or even just like them.
This dude talks with his hands a lot. I don't even think I could do that as much as he is. You know what I'm saying? It's okay. He's a great speaker, though, so I won't have any problems with that, but, you know. He does use his hand talkiness. Okay, let's see this. True or false, informal authority can often lead to greater formal authority. That's true. No, because your formal authority is actually set and defined. But it would reinforce it. We'll think about that. Informal authority is in constant flux. You could lose or gain it, to be honest. So that's probably true to most extents. Let's just go true. Boom. In some ways, informal authority can be more powerful than formal authority because it allows you to extend beyond the limits of your job. That's totally true. I do that all the time. You can give me a job description, but I'm going to pretty much carry out what I'm able to carry out, and it's usually way beyond what they tell me I'm allowed to do, just to be honest.
When we work in an organization, we all know that the informal authority we earn with our boss counts a lot. But your boss's view of you is also shaped by what they hear from your subordinates and from your lateral colleagues. If your boss hears that you've gained the respect and admiration of subordinates and colleagues, that counts in their evaluation
I think this
of
is
your
true,
capacity.
guys.
People especially underestimate the power of subordinates,
Boom.
but they do so at their peril. The
Now we'll
informal
listen to 'em.
authority that subordinates give you is enormously valuable. Their respect, trust, and admiration is often crucial to any manager. Senior military officers know, for example, that they need the respect and trust of their troops to get a tough job well done. The formal authority that comes with their rank really isn't enough. The same is true with lateral colleagues, whose collaboration is so often needed. So while formal authority brings with it the considerable and fairly consistent powers of an office, enduring success in this office usually turns on a person's informal authority. In fact, informal authority also comes with a subtle yet quite substantial power, the power to extend one's reach beyond the limits of the job description. Often, the real go-to person in an organization, the person you seek if you really want to get something done, has a lot more power than her title would suggest because she's gained so much trust and respect. And over time, as people gain more and more informal authority, that trust and respect can turn into greater formal authority as they get promoted to take on more assignments and responsibilities.
Do you think he
Even
works
though the
on
powers
talking
and
with his
influence
hands?
that come with formal and informal authority relationships may be very
Or
different.
it's just like an
In
innate
both
thing?
cases, the relationship itself has the same format. Party A entrusts Party B with power in exchange for services. Now let's look at the practice of managing your formal and informal authority in a dynamic sense. Your formal authority remains constant for long periods of time, changing in quantum jumps occasionally at discrete moments, at hiring, at promotion, or when you leave the job. But because your success in meeting expectations tends to fluctuate week by week, your informal authority is in constant flux. So in practice, you need to track how your informal authority goes up and down over time, how your credibility, respect, approval,
Informal
and
authority in my
admiration
mind is the
change
most
in
important one.
people's
You know what I
eyes.
mean? Like just having people surrender, you know, their overall devotion or whatever you're going to call it based on the fact that you are competent, intelligent, or they can trust in your decisions is absolutely in my mind more powerful than the guy that's like, "Well, I'm your manager." That kind of crap. That's just like I think we've all had that dude that the only reason he's able to boss anybody is because somebody once made the mistake of putting them in charge.
Tracking the two different sources of power is easy to see with politicians. Before her election campaign, a candidate will focus on increasing her informal authority, the respect, admiration, and trust of her constituents.
I wish that was
Her
true.
hope is that the accumulation of informal authority
With
will serve as the
politicians, just
basis
with
for then
politicians,
gaining
guys.
the formal authority of office. She wants to convert the respect and admiration she has accrued during the campaign into enough votes on election day. Election campaigns are all about getting enough informal authority to win. But the value of informal authority doesn't end once she wins and takes office. She still has to monitor her informal authority. Her popularity with her constituents is still a critical source of her power. It will determine not only her prospects for re-election, but also her ability to influence fellow officials while still in office. She needs the informal authority of her colleagues because she needs their respect, trust, and admiration. And they observe how much respect and credibility she has back home to gauge how seriously to take her. Now think about how an elected official's authority might change over time in a dynamic sense. Her formal authorities are unlikely to change during her term in office. Unless there is a change in the country's constitution or legislative powers, her powers to deliberate with colleagues, to speak and to vote will not change as long as she holds that office. In the same way, the formal powers of the President of the United States rarely change during a 4-year term. They are set by the Constitution, and only rarely do the courts or the Congress enlarge or limit the powers of the President. But the President's real power to govern fluctuates weekly as his informal authority, his approval rating, his professional respect, and his moral standing waxes and wanes. His real influence is largely a product of his informal authority. And that's why presidents and other elected officials pay such close attention to the trends in the polls each week. Their real power to govern depends on the changing strength of the informal authority people are willing to give them. Again, formal and informal authority each comes with its own set of powers. Powers that are often at their most effective when used together as complementary forms of influence. It is important to remember, though, that whatever powers of authority you have is only because other people have conferred them upon you. In doing so, these people have consciously or unconsciously signed a social contract and put their trust in you to serve.
I think this guy slightly has a altruistic, like overly positive idea of authority. You know what I'm saying? It's okay. Fascinating. I like his general speaking is very pleasant, to be honest. I don't know about how much he uses his hands. I find that fascinating. I would
The
have to
second big advantage
consciously
to
be like,
distinguishing
I'm
leadership from
speaking, so I
authority
need to be
is that
moving
it
my
enables us to
hands,
celebrate,
stuff.
learn from, and affirm the
But
vital
he just
practice of
moves his
leadership that
hands
takes
like
place
a
every day
lot
by
more than I would. Why did that just
people going
freeze?
beyond the boundaries of their authority, their job description, and by people leading without any authority at all. The idea that one could lead without authority is also quite counterintuitive. Of course, there are disadvantages to leading beyond your authority when nobody has asked you to go beyond your job description, or to leading without
If you need
authority
asked, you're not a
when you
leader.
are nobody's go-to person.
Oh, well, that
But not
sucks.
only is it possible to lead beyond and without authority, often there are advantages to leading in this way, from below or outside. Advantages we only recognize once we have these new categories
Do we get
and
points
can
for this?
see and analyze differences between leading with, beyond, and without authority. One reason this is so important is that many people spend years of their lives waiting to get to an authority position, thinking that when they get to that position, they can finally start to lead. The word leader is so bonded to the word authority for them that they waste years of leadership opportunity waiting first for that promotion or election to a senior authority position. They don't realize that many people find ways to lead laterally and upwards beyond their authority, and even into communities where they have no authority whatsoever. Indeed, one of the major sources of the success and adaptability of American society is a culture that encourages people to lead without waiting. One of my colleagues, Richard Haas, wrote a wonderful book years ago called The Power to
Oh,
Persuade,
crap.
based on the work of our colleague and friend Richard Neustadt, who wrote the classic Presidential Power and founded Harvard's Kennedy School, where I teach. In The Power to Persuade, Richard Haas analyzes leadership beyond one's authority by analyzing leadership in all four compass headings: upward, north, with your superiors; laterally, east and west, across silos and into other organizations; as well as south, inside the organization where you do have clear authority. One of the most recognizable examples of this is the work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., whose leadership was largely directed outside his sphere of authority, upward into the White House and wider political system, and laterally across a wide cross-section of American communities. The communities whose values he wanted most to influence were those communities with whom he had neither formal nor moral authority. Those who disliked him, sharply disagreed with him, or cared little for what he stood for. King succeeded in calling those of us who
Oh.
felt that way to examine and narrow the gap between the values we said we stood for, freedom
Hey,
and equality,
Avalonus. Good morning.
and the way we lived. And that gave political authorities latitude to take action and narrow the gap too. So when we begin to distinguish leadership from authority, we can begin to examine how somebody can provide leadership beyond their authority or without any authority. We can honor and capture the lessons of heroic people, many of them unsung heroes, who lead every day just because they care.
Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. I don't like it. Did that. Okay, we're going to submit that. Honestly, most of the people are writing like one sentence in the description thing. I think that's kind of, well, everybody's their own person. See, this is where they let us know we could just upgrade right now for $209. Then we'd get the credits and we'd get the certificate. I don't really need a certificate in leadership, and so, but that's nice of them. Okay, we already did that. I submitted it. Blah, blah, blah. We're clicking the button. I'm going to find out where we're at real quick, progress wise, and we'll get back to this. Oh, we're at 47%, guys. We jumped almost 9%. 9% right now is what we just jumped. So we're flying through this. This is a pretty easy course, you guys. Just gonna be honest. How much more we have? That's it? Yeah, that can't be it. Guys, this is super. Oh, they put tons and tons of the points right here in this last little bit that's not even that big. You guys see this crap? Okay, let's fly through this the rest of the way, get back to our course, boom. So I'm going to be done with this by next week for sure, you guys. And so the plan next week will be that, what is this? Think politically. The value of thinking politically. Key system rules such as stakeholders, constituents, factions, and how these roles impact adaptive work. Okay, boom. Let's find out. This is another one of these. I put myself in others' shoes to understand what they see at risk. I try to do that. Um, Honestly, I think a lot of people are kind of wusses though. So I do that, but I'm gonna have to be honest about I think most people are kind of woo-woo-y. I recognize what particular alliances will be required to achieve. That everybody has to do. I look for ways to get groups with different interests to align around an issue. Honestly, that's only to a point. Like, there are some people that are never going to align properly, and sometimes you have to just build a coalition of the majority and leave somebody out. And I hate to say that. You don't want to just purposely odd man out somebody because that's a jerk move. But if somebody cannot be brought in and you can get 80% of the people to coalesce around something, as long as you're not being a complete tyrant to the other 20%, sometimes you have to just move forward. I identify which stakeholders need to be engaged to advance an issue. That's the figuring out how many you need. I seek out the unspoken interests of loyalties of other stakeholder groups. I'm gonna be honestly in that category. I identify factions relevant to the issue. I think everybody does that, but maybe not. I don't know. Like who knows what everybody does, right? Holy crap. The amount of people that are in this middle grounding zone is kind of always shocking to me. Like literally it shocks me. I guess there's a lot of kind of lukewarm people in the world. Like, you know what I'm saying? Just attack stuff. Okay, how did you respond to the questions? What patterns do you observe and what might they suggest? For example, does your response vary depending on the behavior or strategy, or are you clearly aligned with one type of response? Let's just be honest. Is that the correct vary? I don't think that is, but whatever. We'll just choose another word because it's 5 in the morning still, and I'm not awake. Let me think about this for a second. Okay, that's what I'm going to say. Boom, boom, boom. Let me make sure that. Okay, boom. Okay, let's go down here, read the things, look over everything. These are stakeholders map. I guess they revised it. I don't know why they revised it, honestly. This looks the same, except they added more fingers. Swim lane, organizational chart. Eventually, we're going to get to some question with that.
Chances are you've already used visualization techniques to analyze organizational systems. One common example is an organizational chart, or org chart for short. These are diagrams that communicate both overall structure and the formal reporting relationships within an organization. There are different methods and designs for displaying this information, but a common approach is a hierarchical tree diagram. The roles at the top of the tree diagram typically have more authority or power than the roles at the bottom. Reporting relationships are displayed using solid lines that connect the role above to the roles below. Indirect reporting relationships are shown with a dotted line. Another technique is the swim lane diagram. It's called a swim lane diagram because each role gets a column, a lane. A multi-step process
I don't
moves
know
from lane
anybody
to
that
lane
uses
as
that
part of
one.
the shared workflow.
I'm just going to be honest.
Technical work often relies on this type of mapping to clarify steps and ownership. It can be highly complex, requiring contributions from many stakeholders. But what about adaptive work? How do you visualize a web of stakeholders with differing degrees of power and conflicting views? A stakeholder map is a simple yet powerful diagram that helps you gather and analyze key diagnostic information.
I've never used a stakeholder map.
We will start by drawing a large circle.
At all.
It might help to think of this as a dinner table. At the center of the circle, place the adaptive challenge, the work to be done. It's like the meal. Next are the stakeholders, or participants. They all get a seat at the table. In a system with 5 stakeholders, add 5 circles. Place the circles around the work, but within the large circle. Feel free to label each circle to indicate the stakeholder represented. Now we add the constituencies. These are the groups represented by the stakeholders. Place constituencies outside the circle, but adjacent to the related stakeholder. Once you've added your constituencies, it's time to identify the factions. Draw an oval or curved line around each stakeholder and related constituencies to create a faction grouping. Don't worry if some of your factions don't show all constituencies. Arranging these groups graphically around the adaptive challenge will help you understand the perspectives of each stakeholder and faction. Drawing a stakeholder map is an iterative process. The more you work on it, the more helpful it becomes. How does each group view the work to be done? What are the values of each faction? What are their potential losses? What are their loyalties? Now that you have your map, you're ready to explore these critical diagnostic questions.
Dun, 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 dun. Okay, next. Okay, before mapping your own challenge, let's consider a short example. In the prompt below, you will read about a case of one of the participants in our recorded workshop. Problem definition, identify the gap or problem to be solved. Stakeholder list, identify the parties relevant. Deep breath. Okay, let's read it. Ready? Okay, what are we doing? Problem, stakeholders? Okay, I was working in the Health Maintenance Organization, HMO. I don't even know what that is. I guess it's a European thing, right? Um, in my country, an HMO pays for the health care expenses for all of the people who enroll in HMO. Each individual pays some money. Okay, so stakeholders are contributors, and we're going to space that down, go like that. Okay, each individual pays, but then the risk of catastrophic health care expenses hit one person in hitting one person is distributed over the whole group. With the population in our HMO getting older, it was becoming more and more expensive to provide good health services because more people had higher expenses. As a result, the CEO of the company set a goal of recruiting new members for the plan, preferably insurees younger than the average, to balance out our high spending on older insurees. Specifically, the CEO required um, every employee of the company to contribute to this initiative by making marketing phone calls, participating in recruitment events, and bringing up the subject during medical or paramedical appointments. At the time, I was a nurse manager, and many of the nurses on my team did not like the requirements. They told me that they were not trained in marketing or sales, which is actually a valid point. Honestly, that is a valid point. They told me that they were not trained in marketing or sales, and it was not the mission they came for, which was treating patients humanely and ethically. Okay, there's going to be other stakeholders. What was it? HMO. Okay, boom, boom, boom. Other stakeholders are the employees. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, as a result, did they want us to solve this? Okay, the second one is adaptive. This is the technical. The adaptive issue. I actually disagree with how they did the adaptive issue, just so you guys know. I guess we could show answer. What the crap would we need that for? I don't know. We'll just submit. Okay, reflection stakeholders, for example. Oh, well, crap. I'll just copy this. Copy. Let's see what show answer does. Oh, dun, dun, dun. You shouldn't be using um, nurses to do that part of the job. Which of the following problem statements is closest to your assessment of the gap? Um, I actually think that you need marketing and sales to own this. Honestly, this is not what I would put. This is kind of interesting though. Let's see. Which of the following? I don't believe you want this. I disagree with how they did this. Wholeheartedly. This seems stupid as crap. Like just having all of your people push it. Have you ever had a bad salesman approach somebody before you approach them? They can burn your cell before you even get there. Just because they suck at what they're doing. Blah, blah, blah. Submit. Da, da, da. Okay. Boom. Poll. These polls crack me up. I think that marketing should actually be handling the problem. Literally, the idea that this is part of a nurse's job is absolutely ludicrous to me. Just to be honest, that literally seems like one of the dumbest things I can imagine. But we'll pretend that we don't care. We'll just move forward on that. Okay, so we're at 6 o'clock. Is anybody currently in the chat actually streaming right now? If so, let me know. I would be more than glad to click to you. Um, just because I like to support you guys. If not, we're going to be raiding over to, well, we'll be raiding over to somebody. Is anybody actually streaming right now? Any of you guys? Boom, boom. Let's look at who we can stream over to. Okay, let's go. I'm gonna go Entropia then. Let's see who's all streaming on Entropia. I don't know who Sunbeam is. Let's see what's going on here. They're sweating, or we would. Whew, King Ads. I'm gonna assume King Ad. Yeah, let's go there. Boom, this guy's doing something. I don't know what he's doing, but let's go. I want to thank you guys for just being freaking amazing. You guys are awesome in general. I hope you have a great day. I'm obviously going to have a great day. I've got coffee in me and such. Um, Thank you very much. I really hope you have a great day too, Juan. Um, Peace, very best wishes, and I'll see you guys tomorrow morning.